Hey everyone, this is Nick Katko, and I'm doing something a little bit different. I'm talking to a friend of mine, Phil Ledbetter, who has a lot of experience with the Toyota production system. He actually worked there in the Georgetown, Kentucky plant, and he's written a book called The Toyota Template about the pull system and its benefits. I've known Phil for years. He lived in Lexington for a while, obviously, because he worked in Georgetown. We went to school together. I coached his son in basketball and all that kind of stuff. So, Phil, why don't you talk for a few minutes about yourself?
Well, Nick, I grew up in Lexington from Tennessee originally. I live in Tennessee now, but I grew up in Lexington. And, of course, we used to go to church together years ago. Um, I worked at Toyota for 16 years in production management. So that's the main background that I bring to well, I guess what you call the lean world. It was a unique experience. This kind of thing I couldn't have learned in college. It was just learned by doing process, and but it was really a life-changing experience for me.
Yeah. All right. And, you wrote this book, The Toyota Template, and it's really about Toyota's pull system. And so, I guess first question, what exactly is a pull system and what makes it unique?
Well, let me start out by talking about what's going on at most manufacturers today. Virtually all of them is everybody's got an MRP or an ERP system that they use to schedule. And the problem with these systems is that orders are pushed through based on lead times that are assumed to be known and stable. So we start so many a day because we assume that's how many we can get done. So we call that in push systems, supply chains through factories are called nonlinear dynamical systems, which means that the timing of the output is highly unpredictable to the timing of the input. So you start something every hour, whatever the timing is, but it doesn't work out that way. And the reason for that is variability that happens during production. So, you start to make things and you'll have a quality issue or a machine goes down, wrong missing part. There's a whole lot of reasons for variability. It could be an engineering problem even. Um, so the assumed lead times are not the same as the production time, basically, is what it boils down to.
Mhm.
It causes a lot of problems, inventory buildup, overtime, all kinds of things that cost money. Um, the countermeasure in the way Toyota runs is what's called a pull system, enterprise-wide pull system. Now they've expanded it to their suppliers many years ago. They call it a just-in-time system now, but anybody can do this in their own factory or on their own footprint if they have a campus of two or three buildings, whatever. Um, and this is the countermeasure to the variability problem. So everybody's got variability. You're always going to have it. Toyota has it. I mean, we had it all the time. But yeah, I know. It chased problems a lot. But anyway, the solution though is the way to keep that from having a impact on your productivity is you implement a pull system. In a pull system, you have defined buffers. So the defined buffers allow production to continuously flow. So let's say I'm working on something, I pass it to you, Nick, and I have a delay for some reason. If I have one between me and you don't stop. You can continue working. I can get my problem fixed and we can keep flowing, right?
These are buffers for variability, which inevitably will occur.
Yes, it all. I mean, anybody who works in manufacturing knows they have these problems, and they see them all the time. The thing about it is, though, if you think about it, most of the time, it's in small increments, and people don't notice it so much. It's just part of the way we do work. Basically, is the way people accept it.
Yeah. Is it,
Um, Go ahead.
is it safe to say that like an MRP system assumes perfection, like nothing's going to go wrong?
I think that's those lead times are probably assumed. It depends on, I guess, who's doing it, but most of the time they assume I can do this in a day, or I can do it in 2 days, right? The problem is there's no way to predict how much variability you're going to have.
Yeah,
There's just no
yeah,
way to predict it. It's going to happen. But to mitigate that and really largely eliminate it, you put buffers in place in the spots where you can have variability.
okay,
So between me and you, we may need a buffer of one or two, whatever the number is. And between you and Deanna, you might need a buffer of one or two, right?
yeah,
Because there's no way to predict when it's going to happen or how long it's going to take.
right.
So if you're prepared, then every time it happens, it doesn't affect the flow of the product. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, it makes sense to me. So, you know, let's sort of get to let's to the benefit. What's the benefit to any manufacturer? Like,
But there's a ton of benefits,
okay,
and a lot of them are financial. Um, because when you're speeding up production, but nobody's working any harder. So it's just a continuous flow. So when that happens, of course, you're getting more out with the same resources. You can cut back on overtime a lot of time. Your inventory, because you had defined buffers, your inventory is decreased. In a push system, they're notorious for having too much inventory. And most of the time, you have a lot of what you don't need and none of what you do need.
hmm,
So in a pull system with defined buffers, you determine how much is going to be in WIP in my factory. So there's a lot of it speeds up on time delivery. Your customer is more, you know, happy about your delivery.
yeah,
Everything gets better. All the metrics improve.
okay, all right. So Toyota's, you worked there 16 years. Toyota's been doing this for many, many years, and so I'm the owner of a manufacturing company, or I'm the president of a manufacturing company, and I'm saying, how can I do this? I mean, Toyota's been doing it for, 50, 70 years. Am I going to have to wait 50 or 70 years to get this in place?
No, I mean, we have the roadmap now. When they were developing their system, it started in about 56, and they developed it over time. They didn't know what they were doing. They were just seeing problems as they came up. They started this pull system based on Ono's visit to the U.S. back in the 50s. And as they went along, they were adding things to it. So, for example, Combine came out of the pull system because what they found was that the downstream process might go to the upstream process and take too much. So they implemented a Combine that metered the flow of the material and information based on time.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's um and so we have the roadmap now. They added things like so as I said, we can't eliminate variability,
Right.
but you can reduce the frequency and duration of variability through things like total productive maintenance.
Hmm.
So if I keep my
Yeah.
machine up and running more regularly, I reduce the frequency and duration of downtime,
Yeah.
which enhances the pull system.
Right. So, again, I'm a CEO, I'm an owner, I want to do this. What does this roadmap or template look like, you know, for a typical manufacturer? You know,
Well, yeah, it's a great question. You have to get the buffers in place, of course, and that depending on what you make and your rate of demand, it depends on how long it would take. You have to run at the pace of demand. That's a really important thing. So you have to determine, how many of these do I have to make in a day? Divide the time out. If it's one every 30 minutes and you got 7 working hours, that's 14 a day, right? So then once you do that, you set the pace, you have the buffers, then you can look at who can keep up and who can't. Maybe everybody can keep up. Maybe it's not a problem. Typically, in a push system, you have too much labor.
hmm,
So typically you can keep up, but there may be places where you have problem or there's not enough staffing. So you may have to realign your workforce a little bit. You may have to move me over to help you and Deanna's fine, right? So that can happen. But what you're trying to establish is that we can all work at this pace, one every 30 minutes.
Okay.
And then but you can do a lot of this simultaneously, Nick. You can do the buffers, you can, set the pace, you can start working on total productive maintenance, you can start working on your quality issues. All that can be done simultaneous if you have the bandwidth.
Right.
It's not
Yeah.
a one after the other
Right.
thing.
So it's sort of like you're actively doing this while you're sort of experimenting at some level of balancing all this out, what the buffer should be. It's a very active. It's not like you just go out there and say, do A, B, C, D, and then you have all of a sudden the pull system magically works. I mean, it's a process, right?
It is a process, but it's a logical process. It's
Yeah.
a rational process. If you think about it, it makes very good sense to do this. And be honest with you, there's no reason not to do it.
Right.
There's no risk. You're not going to slow down. The only thing that's going to happen is production is going to speed up because what you're doing is you're taking that variable time previously and it's being converted into productive time.
Hmm.
You see what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So all that time that you lost, nobody's measuring it. Toyota doesn't measure all that small variability, right? They measure it at certain spots in the plant, but they don't measure every little process and what delays they have, right?
Hmm.
So nobody else is doing that either. And especially like SMEs, small, medium sized, none of these companies are doing this.
Yeah.
They've not seen it, they have no experience with it, and it's just a new thing to them.
Yeah. So how how would a company get started? I want to get started with this. You know, what had do you have experience with this? Is this the kind of thing where you have to find Phil Ledbetter or someone with experience? How do you distinguish if you're talking to various people with lean experience, what what would be the questions to ask them, to determine if they really know what a pull system is?
Well, if you've never done it before, it's hit or miss, right?
Okay.
You're not really sure what to do. Um, I worked at Toyota 16 years. I was right in the middle of it and on the floor every day. I thought I had a really good handle on it. I did not have all the answers. It's a learn by doing thing, and you have to really think about it. And there's no way you could get this out of a textbook. It's kind of like going to college. You take all your accounting classes, you get out, but you realize it's not exactly like it was in college, right?
Right. Yeah.
There's certain different things that you have to do that you weren't maybe taught in school. You can't get this out of a book. If you could, Nick, everybody'd be doing it.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
I mean,
So,
it'd be a no-brainer.
yeah. So it's about people have to experience this. And it's not just it's like, you mentioned Kanban, you mentioned total productive maintenance. And so it's really about how all these sort of tools or practices work in a holistic, harmonious system.
Exactly. But it's all based on the pull method.
Right.
So, when lean started out, whatever it was, 30 years ago, 35 years ago, it was all the rage about the Toyota tools. And so people went out and did SMED and they did TQM and, productive maintenance and so on. But they didn't realize the benefit because it was outside of a pull system. You still had the variability that was uh, costing you productivity every single day
Hmm.
because you weren't pulling. You had no buffers in place. Every time there was a delay, it got snowballed down. My delay passed to you, Nick. Then you passed it on to Deanna. It got worse and worse and worse over time. What happens in MRP systems? They end up slowing down the input rate, right? Because the factory is at some point too full. It's blown
Yeah.
out. So they slow the rate down, right? And then as a panic sets in, then we're working overtime, and then it's kind of chaotic. Um, the pool system is much easier to manage on the floor. Basically, every supervisor or every area is managing to a buffer.
Right.
So
All
if I
right.
have to keep two in my buffer to you, that's what I'm managing to, right? I'm not
Right.
worried about anything else.
Yeah. All right. So how long does this take to get in place?
That's a good question. It
I mean,
really
you
depends
have
on
experience with other companies, you know.
it depends. You know, the it depend one the big one is how bad do you want to do it? How big in a hurry are you in? How much bandwidth do you have? So as I said before, you can do a lot of these things simultaneously if you want to, and you can.
Hmm.
Also depends on this what you make. So if you're making something that takes 2 days to make one, it takes a little longer to get the
Hmm.
buffers in place, right? And there's other ways to do it besides just adding something. But so it takes time. Typically for me, it'll take 6 to 7 months in places I've been.
Okay.
And that's with cooperation, people who are, you know, in it to win.
Yeah. They're
Um,
committed to it.
yeah. So
All
it
right.
can, and here's the thing, it works in any type of environment. High mix, low volume, low mix, high volume, custom, anybody can pull.
Yeah. All right. So let's cut to the chase here because, working in a company ultimately is about, financial success. So, pull systems in place, what are the financial benefits?
Well, this is the cherry on top. Um, not only does it have good benefits for your customers, your employees, and everybody else, but the financial benefit is the big one. Um, so I was at a facility, this has been a couple of years ago now, and I had a good partner. He was all in. Um, we had we went through the process. We basically three things. We worked on the schedule, we worked on pull, and the quality aspect. Those were the three biggies. So after 7 months, I left. The company went for sale. It was a part of a private equity group. It went up for sale. I left. About 6 months later, I got a text message at night, and the director said to me, "Hey, I'm gonna send you something." And so I knew things had gotten better. I didn't know the financial impact, but I knew things had gotten better. Their EBITDA went up over 200%, 202% actually.
And how
And that
long?
was just
How
in
long
one
was that?
year.
1 year. Okay.
In one year. It was an 8 month look at what the previous year to the same 8 months the next year. Now I would say that's probably a bit of an aberration. I don't think that's typical, but I've been at other places. I was at another manufacturer that makes high mix, low volume, and we did this. And I got a call. I left there and went to another one of the facilities in another part of the country. I got a phone call from the guy, and he said, "We hit a production number that we have never hit before. I've been here 31 years." And so I don't know what the financial impact was, but I know it had to be something positive at least
Well,
because they had hit a production number that they'd never hit in at least 31 years.
and they're producing to demand.
They're producing to demand.
So they're
Material is
selling it.
flowing. Yeah, material is flowing. Yeah. That's the problem with push systems is things get clogged up, and every bit of variability it is felt, you
Yeah.
know. It's passed on, it snowballs, it slows
Right.
down.
Yeah. So how expensive is this?
Well, I've not been anywhere that there's made a capital expenditure. There's no, we're not buying a new machine or anything like that. I've never done that before. Um, we'll buy a tack clock so we can set the pace maybe. Sometimes we don't have to do that. I was at a place that they already had a established pace that was dictated by a machine. on their final line, and so we didn't even have to do a tag clock there. I mean, you're talking about a couple $100.
Yeah.
So the main thing is you're changing the method that you make things, and you're capturing that variable time and turning it into productive time. That's where the benefit comes in. It's not in buying a new machine and hoping you got a 12-month payback on it, or a 18-month payback like you guys work with, right?
Hmm.
It's you're just basically changing the way you do things that speeds production up, makes you more productive, makes you more efficient. There's no, I mean, you're going to pay the guy who comes to help you do it and teaches you how to do it. I'll tell you something else about it, Nick. Over time, you get better at it. Toyota's been using this system for 60 plus years, and they continuously are tweaking it.
Yeah.
It's always getting better. They've never departed from it because it's very productive for them.
Hmm.
So, but everybody throughout the plant and in all the plants is continuously tweaking it a little bit to make it better, safer, better quality, and so on.
Yeah. Okay, good. All right.
It's a
So,
learn by doing thing, Nick. It really is
yeah.
a learn by doing. I can't tell you how to do it and you just suddenly, aha. You do it once you do it and you realize, gosh, this works pretty good, It's like if I was to tell you how to throw a changeup baseball, you know. I can show you how to grip it, but how much success you have depends on your practice,
Yeah.
the pressure you put on the ball, all those little things that make a difference. That's what happens in a pull system. The
Hmm.
more you do it, the better you get at it.
Yeah. No, sounds good. So, why don't you hold the book up again and just explain to people like real fast what the book is about?
The book is just about the basics of the Toyota production system, the things that you need to do to copy the Toyota production system. Now, I know there's a lot of people have said in the past you can't copy the Toyota production system. I would say that's not true. We copy it all the time. People are doing SMED, they're doing all kinds of activities that Toyota does. I would say you can't duplicate it.
Hmm.
You make it exactly like Toyota does things, but the methods, the pull and the productive maintenance, all those things uh, can be done.
Yeah. I just wanted to put our contact information up there for
Oh,
people
okay.
listening that, um, if you want to talk to Phil, there's his email, and his book is available on Amazon, right?
Available on Amazon. Yes, it is.
Okay, good. All right, so let's just wrap up here. Any final words of inspiration?
Well, the pull method, the enterprise-wide pull system, is the only production method that can move materials in line with actual demand. There's no other way to do it. It's the only way to do it. So if that's what you want to do, and I would think every manufacturer would want to do this, it's really a no. As I was telling you before we started taping, Nick, this is a no-brainer to me.
Hmm.
Uh, you know, I couldn't figure out why people don't do it. So several years ago, I looked into it. I couldn't figure out why I didn't realize how unique my experience was, I guess.
Yeah.
So I was trying to figure out how come nobody's doing this. It makes so much good sense. It's so productive and you make a lot more money and yada, yada, yada. And so I went and did a bunch of research and wrote a white paper on it. And basically what I found out was really two things. One is, especially since the 80s, is a reliance on the MRP ERP system for
Hmm.
scheduling. Everybody's doing it, right? It's a sort of a default
Yeah.
spot to be in. But the bigger one is the lack of knowledge. It's called the knowledge gap,
Yeah.
and I guess is this a unique experience working with Toyota
Hmm.
and you know understanding what they do, because really nobody's doing this.
Right.
Nobody's doing it. I was in a very large company, a Fortune 50 size company, shipping one facility shipping 2 million a day, and they weren't doing it.
Yeah. Okay.
What
Yeah.
would the effect have had on them? It have been crazy.
Yeah. So anyway, uh, I hope everyone enjoyed this interview. You have more questions for Phil, please write him and ask him. And I can vouch for what you were saying, Phil, because I've got to experience a lot of visiting lean companies when I'm working on lean accounting. And uh, I can basically say the same thing that the companies that have really committed to, practicing lean to achieve pull have seen tremendous financial benefits as opposed to those that are basically just committing to various lean tools, but not putting them all together in a system. So anyway, thanks, Phil. And everyone, hope you enjoyed this and stay tuned for more work on lean accounting in the future. All right. See you. Bye-bye. Bye, Phil.
Thanks, Nick. Thank you.